Good evening, and welcome to the Library of Horror Hotel, where it's time once again for Creepy Cheapies, where we dig the art of Halloween masks. And before I go any further, you know, there are certain things in life that, well, may fall outside a person's particular skill set. Certain skills you may be lacking, and you may have to spend your whole life trying to improve at one particular thing or another. And well, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because perhaps you have other complementary skills that compensate for the skill that you may be lacking. And where I'm going with that is that one thing I'm not very good at, but I need to improve and I need to get better at, is this. Please hit that subscribe button. I promise it won't hurt much. And if you do, it will help enable us to bring you more of the Horror Hotel Creepy Cheapy type viewing wonderment and befuddlement and foolishness and all that. All the tomfoolery that you like at Horror Hotel. If you hit subscribe, that'll be a little bit of a help with. Anyway, let's roll on to today's monster, which comes from the creeps at the Horrordome. You guys know I like Horrordome masks. I like this one. This one is none other than, I kid you not, WOLFMAN. Just WOLFMAN. And here's what's cool about it. And you might be thinking, that doesn't look like the WOLFMAN. Well, for one thing, stop talking in a silly voice and straighten up. One thing that's cool here is that this doesn't look like any particular Wolfman or werewolf movie I've ever seen. And I have seen so many of them. Good heavens, I've seen so many werewolf movies, all right? If I had a nickel for every werewolf movie I've sat through, I'd have $32.65, okay? But this one doesn't look like any of them, and yet it looks like it could be called Wolfman. It doesn't look like Lon Chaney. It doesn't look like, you know, Oliver Reed or any of the other classic Wolfmen. It doesn't look like Henry Hull, or it doesn't look like the 80s werewolves like American Werewolf in London or The Howling. It's kind of a fresh take on what a Wolfman might look like. And I love that nasty grin that he's got, because he's clearly enjoying being a Wolfman. None of this sympathetic, sad stuff with this particular Wolfman. No, he enjoys his work, because look at that. Look at that expression. And I will tell you, I try to always tell you when I do some work on these, I did not do anything to this brute, okay? This is exactly how it came out of the package from the freaks at Horrordome, with this nice of a paint job. And I don't know if you can see the detail there, but the eyes look great, and they're sort of rolled up like he's maybe rising up from somewhere looking up at you. And he's clearly grinning, which is very unusual and maybe unique to Wolfman masks. But he is show you the technical side here. He is a latex, about a 3/4 mask. The latex doesn't stop here. It comes back to there, okay? So it's more than a half mask. And it's got a pretty nice quality fur hood on the back and covering, you know, part of the forehead there, so you can brush that down. And it also has a black elastic strap across the back on the inside. I don't know if you can see that. And it also has a chunk of foam glued in there, so that if you wear it, these eye cuts and this general structure of his face won't gouge your eyes. You see, won't dig into your eyes too badly, because there's a little piece of foam in there. And if it's not enough, glue another piece of foam to this piece of foam that's in there, okay? It's still pretty sweet. And the nice thing is that if you're familiar with the creeps at Zagoni Studios, they just happen to have a werewolf shirt, or at least they did the last time I checked, a werewolf shirt that had this same fur with torn fabric around it to look like a Wolfman shirt. So you could get one of those, and you can buy this from the Horrordome, either just the mask, of course, or you can get it with a set of matching hands that, again, have this same kind of fur that are actually sold as Zagoni werewolf hands all over the place, but they're not a perfect match to that many masks. This one, yeah, this one they are the perfect match for. And again, I love those teeth, and that smile is very unusual. And he has the high gloss mixture on the teeth and eyes. I don't know if you can see that. And you could probably tell when I stuck it up there in your face a moment ago that you would be seeing out of these little cuts underneath the eyes, which is kind of a Horrordome thing. A lot of their masks are designed that way, but what a cool Wolfman! Props, I think, for coming up with something that looks like it could be called Wolfman, and anybody who looks at it will know it is a Wolfman, and yet it doesn't look like any Wolfman that came before. I like that in a wolf, don't you? Yeah, how will you get along without one next Halloween? I think he's pretty darn cool. And say, Wolfman, what do you sell for? About 80 bucks? About 80 bucks, he thinks. Are you sure? Yeah. You sure it's not 90 or 70? Or you're pretty sure it's 80? Yeah, there you go. So look for the Wolfman. And by the way, if you don't want to buy the Zagoni werewolf shirt that I talked about that looks good with the, you could wear pretty much anything with this guy because anybody could have turned into him. So he could be wearing any sort of, you know, street clothes, really, as long as you don't have a lot of skin showing. Because if you have too much skin showing, you get arrested for indecent exposure. And speaking of exposure, I hope you'll join us again here next week where we will expose another horrible monster. Well, until then, remember, what were you supposed to remember?